These aren't the stories your mother told you. No, these are the other stories.
Today's episode of The Other Stories is Bottle Service, written by Dal Piaz and narrated by Erica Ventura.
The secret is the alpha, the man was saying. The basis of any sound male fertility clinic. Someone in the small audience snickered. The man in the white coat reacted like he'd heard it before. Oh yes, you can laugh. But I hope our research has shown that as men read fertility cues in women, those very women read dominance cues in men. And the dominance cue you all lack? That absence of visible unease, he said, smoothly, deeply. More nervous laughter. It's okay. Let it out. There's nothing to hide. Our systems have been assessing your body language. Like during the oiled man. Roderick winced. The oiled man. Some cross between a bodybuilder and model had come out under the bright lights, and the man had oiled his muscles, clad only in a black swimsuit smaller than the underwear of Roderick's long-ago girlfriend. The man had done it silently and up close, staring each of the seated men uncompromisingly in the eyes. The white-coated man continued. You men, with no real sense of a woman. Will it work out for you? In marriage? With girlfriends? No. Divorce rates say no. And for men of a certain caliber, that comes at a cost of millions. Now, you can all go back to being who you are currently, one day soon. But if you are to know what you really like, the woman really for you, you'll have to sample many dishes. You'll need to be the alpha. Even if for just long enough. And androsia can do that for you. The man switched off the projector and turned up the bright lights of the room even higher. One wouldn't assume that they could go that high. Of course, sirs. This gel is expensive to make. The white coat brought out a small blue bottle. Expensive because it takes time, resources, which means there's not nearly enough for you all. Not this year. Probably not the next. I mention this as you will soon transition to the next room to discuss pricing. I am just a scientist. My job isn't numbers. But I want all of you to know the facts. Good luck. Some in the audience clapped. At the sound, Roderick, like a hurried flyer who has dutifully crammed everything into only a carry-on, leapt early from his seat to be the very first to buttonhole the man in white. The man explained the Androsia cream. It covered the torso, was imperceptible, a capacitive gel that would control facial and body expressions. It will smother the micro-expressions which are a tell to women of your fear. Roderick. How did he know my name? Expressions so blatant that they're like vomit on your face. The man went on. Your odious fear, Roderick. Women can smell it on you. And the gel would broadcast to them, instead, your fearsome levels of control. Your utter chill, based, whatever you want to call it. And you do it all with the face you already have. From you. The real you. Roderick was in the next room looking at the price. Large on the board in soothing light blue. 250,000. Is that dollars? Roderick asked, flabbergasted, to the sales agent. She leaned in with a delicately precise whisper. How much have you already spent? On woman? She asked it imperfectly, yet somehow crushingly more correct. Though they spoke on, it became clear in retrospect that Roderick had agreed at that moment, even if he had not yet known it. He had questions, of course, important ones, like about guarantees, but the woman was troubled not at all by any of it. You'll perform it at Blinku, she said. Roderick gulped. Come again? It was the highest of high-end clubs, had the highest of high-end women, whom each dripped impenetrability. Roderick stammered. When you ride a rocket, she said then, you go to the stars, not to the drive-thru. She met him in the bathroom. It was the full Cyrano, she explained. He'd paid double, but results were even more assured. A bottle of androsia, a beta-testing internal pill, and her in his ear. With thick clay-like gloves, the woman spread androsia over Roderick's face and chest. It went on white but clarified quickly. She did it carefully, as if she were polishing the marble likeness of a loved one. Across his brows and bridge of his nose, massaging gently the Adam's apple of his neck and down his chest. She sat intimately across his lap, facing him. His breathing quickened. That will go away soon, she assured. She slipped him the pill then, thin, oblong, almost like a filament. He struggled to swallow it. You're ready. Wait 15. Then go to the blue table in the far corner. I will be in your ear, helping. And we will be controlling. Blinku wasn't like any space Roderick had seen. Imposingly tall inside, its walls crawled with glass crystals which were conveyed smoothly down them like a waterfall, disappearing into an onyx black seam on the floor. The crystals burst what light was within the space into star shards and shafts which penetrated a mesmerizing gold and honey fog hung under an unseen ceiling far above. Beneath this hovered huge and impossibly dim lights. And beneath those, a gargantuan-hewn bar, mixed from dozens of stones, granites, limestones, marbles, that snaked organically through the space like the meandering and sideways path of a runner through an ancient market. People were everywhere, in a crush, and pounding music. It played from a DJ in a booth of pure platinum, which protruded glass-faced and cantilevered from one wall and was called out by bubbling pink spotlighting. The woman had told him to dress sharp. Roderick had, all in sleek black. He wore a Hublot Big Bang King Gold Rainbow across his wrist. $150,000. rings around his fingers, chains around his neck. He might have been another pale, dull lawyer bro at work, but he knew what looked like money. The firm had even hired that beautiful consultant to show them. As he descended into the main room, convulsing fear gripped him. He could feel dampness surge into his underarms. "We'll take care of that," came her voice quick into his ear, tinny and dim in the loudness. And then, like magic, the dampness cleared as fast as if it had gone in reverse. Roderick caught a glimpse of himself in the smoked glass mirror then, and it wasn't the sight of a fearful rat caught in his hole, trapped. It was a face he never had, his face, but smooth, untroubled, sexily narrowed eyes, a firm cant of his head, a relaxed posture of his jaw. He looked in his element, potent. He smiled and the image of it burst onto the mirror, wide, loose, and white. Gorgeous. Roderick made his way through interior arches, rounded living plant obelisks, towards the blue table in one deep corner. A standalone bar huddled nearby, and a bevy of females ringed around it. Roderick pushed through. "Excuse me." His voice, pulled so low now, relaxed and velvet and smooth. The women he parted between bristled with interest just at the sound of it, looking behind them, and they seemed to confirm their interest, not moving their firm backsides as he turned and slipped between them, with intimacy separated barely by cloth. He ordered a drink. "Boulevardier." "Sit. It's reserved," came the voice in his ear. He retrieved his drink and sat at the long blue banquet, sliding in along its cold and hard surface. A woman met him from the other end, and another followed, bookending him in place at the center. It was impossible not to perceive their loveliness. From their firmed and rounded bodies, their sheaths of brilliant hair, jewels around their necks and wrist, dresses which wrapped them with the tempting delight of something meant to be unwrapped. And they spoke, freely and softly, fine-jawed and with ease. They had it. Had it too. What he had now. Like wary creatures in the jungle dark, they had seen and discerned their kind and had emerged into a sort of sacred recognized space. A free pool that they now entered and lounged in, that they released in. Roderick put his head back and saw himself in the mirror above. And his face, it was as unperturbed and realized as a statue of a Greek god. It was at this moment that a high-pitched whine burst into his ear. It was gone fast, but before it had left, a veil of stiffness settled over him. Roderick tried to move, feeling stuck to the banquet, and his head only lolled stiffly down and into place. He looked around, catching a sideways glimpse of himself turned another quarter turn away. He was still and inwards as a Buddha. But he was stuck. He couldn't move. As the girls continued to speak, he found himself making calm clucks and utterances that were not his doing. Fear started to well within him, but it came out only as its opposite. Then one of the girls spoke. "You wouldn't mind if I borrowed the watch, would you?" Roderick only muted out a bland grunt through a smile. The girl thanked him and then unbuckled the watch with a provocativeness like she were undoing the belt buckle from his pants, which she'd already zipped down and parted. She slid the watch from his wrist and into her purse and got up slowly to leave. She was replaced by another girl, lovely too, of a different sort. He hoped in her kind face that she would read the terror building inside him, find it somehow in his eyes. "Hi," she offered warmly, and she nuzzled a near kiss into his neck and stayed close within his space, her breasts pouring over her arms, her face so close that he caught the scent of 100 intricate bouquets which garlanded the air between them. She placed a hand gentle on his neck and unclasped the gold from around it. Another woman arrived then, intertwining her fingers into his, trying to quietly roll off his most ostentatious ring. But it was stuck. It wouldn't budge. Roderick started to mew and scream, but on the outside sat placid and warm, enwrapped slightly forward with the woman who pushed up close to him. He scanned the room, trying to find someone, anyone, who might notice, might know. "Cry! Cry, goddammit!" A woman passed before him, plainer and simpler than those around him. He caught her eye, but she quickly put her head aside modestly after a small smile, and became lost in the full scatter of the crowd. "Help! Help!" Roderick screamed on the inside. And then a shooting pain stabbed his arm. He looked. The lady beside him had a blade palmed in her hand, had it just behind the ring on his finger. She was pressing down hard, and soon stood to get a light of her cigarette from across the table. She brought her full weight onto the hidden blade and, in a blindingly painful instant, the knife shunted down onto the table hard. Roderick's finger separated from his hand, and the woman slipped the digit into a case like lipstick and lay her purse broadly over his bleeding hand. She left, blowing him a kiss. Pain, intense and searing, railed through him. Roderick screamed in ferocity, and out came a casual groan, appreciatively warm, and he winked as the girl left laughing. Roderick now beat his arms. He thrashed his legs, gnashed his teeth, rattled his head, but then not really. Not on the outside, where it counted, where Roderick only sat with his boulevardier. He scanned the DJ booth. There she was, the sales agent. Looking at him, she gave a signal, though not to him. Suddenly, the pile of girls around him unwound and separated, and was replaced like a wave by another group. A crew of 6. Some had fancy bags they set on the table. The sides flipped down, half revealing screens, monitors. "It's okay. I'm a nurse," said one lovely as she gently slipped a nude cuff over his wrist. Another introduced a needle into his arm. Then he felt searing cold on his backside, as if the seat was being chilled. He was slowly lowered backwards, looking up in the mirror at the self-satisfied bastard face he never knew he could make. "No! No!" Then, beneath him, he could feel it. The backing of the bench sliding open. He felt tugging cuts of his clothes being cut away. Then cold and gloved hands handled his flesh, marking a line and then an area around his kidney. In moments, one woman placed a mustache over his lip, affixing it, and, from the top of it, 2 hidden tubes went into his nose. "Count backwards from 10. she said. Roderick screamed, long and hard enough to still feel the first tender separation of the scalpel as it entered his flesh.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Other Stories. Bottle Service was written by Dal Piaz, narrated by Erica Ventura, produced by Carl Hughes, and music by Audio Coffee and Tom Robson, and sound effects provided by freesound.org. The episode illustration was provided by Luke Spooner of Carry On House. A quick thanks to our community managers Joshua Boucher and Jasmine Arch, and to Joshua Boucher for helping with our submission reading. And to Ben Errington, the Masked Mastermind, masterminding his own business and masking his mastermindedness very much mind. Dal Piaz is a writer of speculative fiction from New York, and Erica Ventura is an artist, mother, bilingual narrator, and a husbandry technician. How does she manage it all? No idea, but her artwork can be seen on Instagram at EFVENTU, or you can visit her artist page on facebook.com/bioartsy. The Other Stories is a production of the Story Studio Hawk and Cleaver, and is brought to you with a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license. That means don't change it, don't sell it, but by all means share the hell out of it. Until next time.